Welcome to the 5th session of our electronic tea. In this session, we're going to continue on looking at some of the challenges. And as is always true, in the course of looking at challenges, we come to see how Enki has supported us, how it sparked our creativity to solve those challenges. In the session that you're about to see, this is going to bring us to look at some of the central principles of what make Enki Enki. There are two in particular that are raised by the parents, and I thought it might help if I gave you some background on it because they jump right into the middle. So the first one is the principle of what is our ideal. Normally in education, pretty much everything, we think of the ideal as something up here, a perfect world that we're trying to attain. And everything down here, the nitty-gritty of our lives, we're trying to overcome these and strive our way up to perfection. In the Enki model, this is not the case. It's not how we see the ideal. We see this principle up here as being a blueprint. For us, it's the materials, the resources, the schedules, the methodology for teaching specific things. All of that is part of what we look at as being the blueprint. It's a source of information for us. It's not a perfection or a goal that we're striving to achieve. So for us, this is the blueprint or the source of information. And down here we have the reality of our lives, our beautiful and challenging children, the specifics of our family and our world, our gifts, our challenges, our opportunities, our limits, all of the things that make the nitty-gritty of our lives. That's down here, the reality principle. Where we see the ideal is in bringing these two together. So working with this source of information and the realities of our lives, we find the personal ideal, which is the Enki ideal, by joining them. So how that happens in Enki and what makes Enki Enki is that we do this joining by asking questions from the perspective of the Enki web. The Enki web is a set of principles that bring forward questions. And on the basis of those questions and how each of us answer them, we will adapt what we do so that the children are met in the context of our family and of the realities of their individual lives. So let's join the homeschoolers and hear their very specific examples of this process.
Enki isn't about do this on Monday, do this on Tuesday, do this on Wednesday. And that would drive me absolutely nuts. The structured approach I do need, but I do love that the nourishment for me comes in the freedom. And the foundation guides give me the space so that I could just meet my kids where they were and take the time to take a long, long time with place value if I needed to, or, 3 weeks, whatever was going to work. Sometimes I get stuck and then I say, oh, there it is in the guide. And I just need the foundation guides.
It's been a journey through the guides, telling me and helping me see. My oldest daughter, I had always started her, she was a year ahead. We did kindergarten when she was preschool, and we did first grade when she was kindergarten age. And it wasn't until second grade that I realized how well Enki met her developmentally when I was at the right place for her. When I slowed down and looked at what she really needed, I could see that I had been in fact rushing her. And it was the first time that I really started to get confidence in my ability to meet her needs by looking at where she was at that moment, instead of where the school system said that they should be. And the reading was another good one. I taught her all the things she needed to learn, but she wasn't ready till she was ready. And we took that break over summer, and she picked up a book at the beginning of the year and started reading it. And I was like, hey, how'd you learn how to read? So, but now that I'm able to trust my intuition a little better in a lot of ways, So that has been my support right there, and it's helped me get a lot of confidence in my homeschooling ability.
For me, that aspect of freedom that you're talking about, Tosca, my experience of that with my children has come through what's described around integration of the child, this place where we observe the child and see where are they, mind, heart, body. So for me with Joseph and his work with reading, for example, and certainly there's an outline and suggested unfolding for how we would work with bringing word families and the spelling stories and the consonants and vowels and all of those things in first and then into second grade. And those are great support and giving some guidance, especially for that person like me with the no education background. But deeper than that, and what you're pointing to that's in the foundation guides and then in each of the grade level guides, is looking at this child and noticing how are they receiving, what is their experience, and are they integrated as this content is being worked with. And so as I saw my son in knots and pale and short of breath as we were working with word families, was information to me of I have the freedom to listen to what my son is showing me and what my son is telling me through his body, and can adjust accordingly. And sometimes I'd push through and then we'd have big meltdowns later that day. And sometimes I'd be able to say, this is a place to reassess and what's happening, and maybe back up a little bit and go back to doing some more body work with vowel sounds or with the consonants that were, for me, I thought, oh gosh, we've done that M story and we did the movement and all of that. He should have M. But yet when I'd put the M on the house with the word family, he was all in knots. I had the freedom to go back and say, this is what he's showing me. How can we work with this and approach it in a different way that will support his learning?
Yeah, that is exactly it. When I think of how tight Phineas got at the end of second grade with drawing and working with that threefold rhythm of having the digestion piece, taking that open intake of materials and story, and then digesting it in some way. And I could go back to the guides and read, what is the energy of the digestion? Why are we doing digestion? As opposed to, looking through the materials and saying, well, in order to digest this, you could do, a drawing, or you could make a scene, or you could do a painting, or you could act it out. So those were options, but none of those were working for me. So to be able to go back into the guides and find out, what was the essence of digestion, and then sit with that and sit with the picture of Phineas and decide that for him, he just needed his own way to do it, which at the time was to embody that person that we were reading about, and to become that person, but not in a way where he acted it out in front of me or put on a play or some kind of, performance art, but in a way where he just took his time to go outside and relive it like a 5-year-old, reliving being Winnie the Pooh. And so the freedom to do that was a weight lifted.
And Tosca, when I hear you describe what Phineas, his work with digestion and I could, as I watched you describe it, I could feel energetically where he was in taking on that person, whoever it was, the sage that he was working with. And not only was that about digestion, it was so deep and connecting for him. It just, I think sometimes we get tied to thinking this is the one particular way to do it. And I love the way that you pointed this out, of that the having the web as a guide really gives us the room to not only the room, it's an urging to say, look at who this person is in front of you. And again, just that little bit you described, I can just envision seeing Phineas doing his digestion. And what better way to do that, that you gave the space for him to be able to do that, rather than, oh no, you're sitting here and drawing this picture that's torturing you. But instead saying, let's really look at his integration and what is supporting him, keeping that connection to his wisdom and vitality.
Kathy mentioned something. She wasn't able to make it tonight, but she mentioned that most of the time she approaches it like Tasca described. Let me go for the principles and figure out what do I want to draw from and how. But she's a military family. And periodically, like right now, which is why she can't be with us, they're about to pack up. This is like their third move in 4 years. And she said, when we get to that point where we're about to move, I go to the prefab schedules and follow them and let them carry us while we need something to carry us. And when we have our feet back on the ground, I go back to to the heart of it and find my way for something that's more personal for us. There are people for whom having the schedules and following the schedule is really an important support for a period of time. And they absolutely have that. I can't reach. No, wait, I got one. So something like this book has very specific schedules, and there are many more of them, that people can follow if you're someone for whom that supports you connecting. But if you're someone for whom it doesn't support you connecting, you go back to the guides and you find, what's the essence of this? What am I after and how might I do it? And I think you can hear from all the different ways people are talking about it, there are different ways to do it, each one just as valid.
In a lot of ways, Enki has really helped me trust my intuition. And when I started out along the homeschooling path, I always had a strong belief that traditional school started a lot of stuff too fast for the kids, and that especially here in the United States, it seems like we're trying to get them to learn everything. They should know all their numbers and letters by the time they're 3. And I never felt in my heart that that was right. But I still felt the pressure from other people. So it took me 2 years of using Enki to really get to the point where I could trust that.
I read all the foundation guides and thought, gosh, this is great ideas, and we don't have to know it all. And then that all actually really was of support in those early years. And it took a long time for me to let go of, I can do the blueprint. And eventually my teacher health had said, no, actually you can't. So let's be real. Good thing nature does that and says, let's really look at what's real. That I would say had definitely been my biggest challenge. And now, that was 2nd grade, and now Joseph's going into 8th grade, and we are living our ideal, which is the joining of this blueprint or heaven or that gives us guidance. But that's not what's happening in my home. And what's happening in my home is a joining of those two. And it's really fun.
So I think for me as the developer, that's so important to me that it's not about we should all be at the blueprint. Really, I would consider that a terrible failure. So how can we join this in a coherent way rather than running around and grabbing from all different things? What's a coherent way to bring it together? It's about, how do I make this mine? How do I use the wisdom in this to make it mine and serve my family? So we're not looking to reach this, everybody does it the way it's printed. That's just information. Personally, I've never done it the way it's printed, not once ever in 40-something years of teaching. So, but I use it all the time. I went today to look up 4th grade spelling, and it really helped me to remember what are the issues and why. And then I could sit and say, and where is Ibra with this, my grandson? Where is he, and where do we need to go, and how does it fit our day? And that's the ideal for us.
I've often thought, if my house was on fire, oh my gosh, I lost it all. If my house was on fire, what would I save? Do you guys ever, I don't know, maybe you all don't think crazy thoughts like that. What would I say? And I swear to God, my foundation guides are on the top of the list. They beat out the wedding album. And
wait, Tosca, wait. I will happily replace the guides if they burn in a fire. Get your wedding album.
the memories are in my head. It's okay. So having the foundation guides to read and reread and reread has been really helpful to go back to when I get when I get lost. It's all there, and it's so deep. All I needed when I got stuck was to look at, you know, the web, and then look at my child. I could figure out what was going on. And I've gotten to a point now where I feel that I kind of do those things internally. You know, I don't always feel like I am, you know, clicking on each thread of the web and going through. It's sort of like an internal feeling. It's like I've learned to get the bigger picture. But I do love that the nourishment for me comes in the freedom that I find in the guides.